Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to the show. Got my crew with me, Darnell and Tyler. I'm Trey, and we're coming your way with the 68th edition of the Don't Kill the Messengers podcast. First thing we're about to get into is some UFC. Particularly, we're about to start off with my man Darnell's guy, GSP. We just had news of Bisping having an injury, and plus news of there being an interim title fight. I believe it's at UFC 2. Yeah, I believe it's at, our next upcoming pay-per-view at UFC 212, with Yoel Romero, fighting for the interim title. Does this make you think that GSP is going to actually have to fight Woodley next, or how do you think this will play off, Darnell? I know we touched on it a little bit last week.
Well, yeah, I mean, it looks like he might have to look to one of the other champions if he wants a title fight and a big name fight. So, I mean, he's looking at Woodley probably as his top choice. I think that's probably the best fight out there for him. It's probably like we talked about last week. That's a tougher fight for him, but that's probably the most exciting one that's sitting there, especially since Mcgregor is pretty much not on the table right now.
Yeah. Now, with just how this is set up, you still think with this happening, you still think he's going to try to aim for that fight to happen in, what was it, October, November? And how do you think?
Probably so. I mean, that's just.
Oh, go ahead, man.
Go ahead.
No,
well, I was saying, I think that's probably what's going to work best for him, just since, GSP, he's one that will stick to that. He only fights when he feels his body is going to be ready. He's kind of always been that way. He's a definite treat your body as a temple type person. So, if that's when he felt he was going to be peaking the fight, that's when he was going to fight. So I assume he would still shoot for somewhere around that late fall and early winter time period.
Yeah. Now, how do you think, if this does happen, which, I'm pretty sure it will, how do you think this will affect the welterweight division? Because we was talking about it this month, but it was originally set for Woodley to fight Maya. He was on a tear too. Do you think they would perhaps get a fight in before that October-November mark, or do you think they would probably have to put a little hold on there until wait for Woodley to meet GSP in that time frame?
I think it would be pretty much the same situation we had going in the middleweight division. Woodley would probably want to wait because he knows the paycheck that would come with it, but Dana White and the powers that be would want him to defend and not hold the weight class hostage. And of course, probably the other fighters in the division would have fits too.
Yeah, I can definitely understand Woodley wanting to wait due to the money that's involved in that fight. That could be his biggest payday ever in the UFC. So, and most likely will. So I can definitely understand that. But I got to be honest, man. Told you before, I will feel nervous for your man GSP, for him to come back and just get into a ring with a beast like Woodley. That would be a huge step for him to get back into the ring. So I would have liked to see him. The best move would have been Bisping, but don't think he has a lot to offer to the table like Woodley has. But if GSP is going to get in there, man, it's probably best for him to, take his time off and make sure that he's ready, because when Woodley gets in that ring, man, it can be over quick. So.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Best bet if you feel bad saying it because he's a champion, but I feel like Bisping basically would be a tune-up fight for GSP.
Yep.
That would be his best bet, especially if he's going to fight in the welterweight division, because that division is pretty stacked, and Woodley, he's proving that he deserves to be champ.
Yeah.
So yeah, it probably would have been better for him to take a fight somebody in the lower part of the top 10 or so just to get his feet back wet and get back used to the speed of a live fight. But I guess you take that risk of losing to somebody if he's not still peak level GSP too. So maybe he's just trying to get in there, get his money, and if he loses, get out.
Yeah. Now, just your opinion. Do you think that if GSP was to fight Bisping, do you still think that would have made more money compared to him fighting Woodley? Because even though Woodley is a better fighter, in my opinion, than Bisping, he's one of the most underrated, overlooked fighters the UFC has ever had. So, which one do you think would bring in more money, in your opinion? You still would think Bisping? Or
I guess Bisping probably a little bit more, just because of the international appeal of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have GSP who brings basically the country of Canada with him. And Bisping is a draw in the UK. That's where he's from. So, a bigger buy rate PPV wise, due to the fact that both of them are quote international fighters. And I mean, Woodley has been shy about telling how he doesn't feel he's promoted as well as he should be. Even though he's a far more exciting and talented fighter than Bisping, I feel like that one would probably draw a little more. Not as much as most people would think. I do think just the level of that fight and just the drawing power of GSP's first fight back is going to do bananas numbers.
Yeah.
But I think just because of Bisping being from another country, he might be a tick or two higher because of that.
Yeah. Plus, man, I say just a little bit of trash talk too, man. You talk a little bit.
He's more like.
Yeah, so I would think that would help too. But yeah. But all right, man. Anything else to add for your man GSP?
No, like I said, I just hope he's somewhere near what he used to be if he's gonna fight.
Yeah. All right, man. We're about to talk about Mighty Mouse next. Cody Garbrandt, he was originally supposed to fight TJ Dillashaw. It wasn't at 212. It was actually supposed to be at 213. But he got injured. And so TJ Dillashaw, there was rumors going around, he's kind of stated that he would like to fight, Demetrius Johnson. He's a beast, man. But just with this, how do you feel about the thoughts of this happening? And do you actually believe this fight will happen?
Well, I'm really bummed that this fight is off. I've been looking forward to it. I don't know if either of you two have been watching the reality series, The Ultimate Fighter. But no. TJ and Cody were coaching against each other, and it's been a few heated exchanges. Like in the very first episode, basically, Cody threw up a hand around TJ's neck and was getting ready to try to throttle him. So there's no love lost between these two. As we've stated, they're former campmates from Team Alpha Male under Uriah Faber. Dillashaw left under terms that the rest of the guys didn't like, going with their former striking coach who wanted to start his own new gym. So this was a legit fight where the two guys really have history, don't like each other. I felt like it was going to be fireworks just because they're both high action fighters anyway.
Yeah.
And it brings another level when you are active fighters and you don't like who you're fighting.
Yeah.
So I'm really sad that this fight is not happening. It's interesting hearing DJ's name being thrown in as a replacement, but over the last 6 months to a year, Mighty Mouse he started to put his feet in the ground as far as, look, I'm possibly the best fighter in the world. And if you want me to start moving up and having super fights, you better pay me super fight money. So I don't think the fight is out of the question. It's just the UFC is going to have to come out of that wallet for it. If DJ is going to put himself at risk going up to fight Dillashaw, or having Dillashaw come down and jump the line to fight DJ, he wants to get paid for it. So I can understand that. Being as good as he is, he's probably the lowest paid title holder in the UFC. From what I've heard, his normal purse it's like maybe $200,000 or $300,000. Where you know, you got McGregor pulling out multi-million-dollar fights. Brock came back without a belt to get a couple $1 million. And you know,
I was
Jones and like they're all getting paid crazy money. Where Mighty Mouse is as good, if not far better than some of the names I mentioned.
Yeah, you know, just another one. I was reading an interview that he had. He was kind of ticked off a little bit about the whole CM Punk situation when he came in. He was talking about, he makes about $200,000-300,000 a fight. CM Punk's debuted in the UFC. He made $500,000 to get the daylights beat out of him, pretty much. So I definitely understand this. I do believe that, you know, Mighty Mouse is a beast. He's definitely one of the best, if not the best, in MMA right now. And for me, when I see a fighter that's been dominating as much as he has been in that division of his, I always want to see fighters move up in weight when they do that. But again, I understand he wants the money to do that. So it's going to be.
And also, he wants to set the record for title defenses too.
Yeah, true. Yeah. He has like one more, right?
He needs one more defense to tie, and then he wants to be alone. So I mean, that means he wants to have at least 2 more fights at his weight class.
So I was talking about that. How he was. I was listening about, and then another interview he was talking about he believes he can just floor that record and just have it to the point where nobody could beat it. So. He's that talented, he could do it. But for this to happen, I definitely think Dana will have to end up coughing up a little bit more cash. I do believe that Demetrius Johnson, he deserves it. Dude always works hard. He gets into the ring. He gives his absolute best and just dominates his opponents. So I would definitely like to see Dana cough up a little bit more money for this guy, for him to have this fight. One of the best fighters the UFC has ever seen. So we'd like to see it happen, but will Dana White ego let him cough up a little bit more cash? That's the big question.
Yeah, I mean, Dana, he's very shrewd as a businessman. And, you know, from the UFC side, for some reason, fans do not buy into the lighter male weight classes as much. I don't know why it is.
I was about to say, man, like, why do you think that is?
I mean, I guess I think it just goes to the male ego. If you feel like you're watching a fighter that you may be able to beat up because you're just bigger than them, even though it may be the craziest thing possible. Like, I mean, if DJ walks into a room, I don't know too many people that are actually going to scrap him up. Even if you are bigger, if you're not trained, you're probably getting put down.
Yeah, but if I could just jump in real fast, I mean, like, I think that's still the persona that follows the UFC. The fact that these guys are getting in there, and a lot of people think it's still a street fight. It's not a street fight. Like, these guys are trained. They are, you know, basically, for lack of a better term, experts at what they do to the highest level. And, you know, you see a guy in the ring who might be, you know, 5'6", 5'7", 125, 130 pounds. And you think, well, I'm 6 foot, 175, 180. You know, that's nothing. So, you know, I think it takes the Daniel Cormiers and, you know, the Brock Lesnar's for people to say, all right, that's someone you don't want to mess with. And I would almost think that's why they don't buy into the lighter weight class.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm 5'11", about 210. I actually have taken a year of martial arts, judo, but DJ would wax me if I got into a fight. I'm not scared to say it. And I mean, I've been in my share of little like fights. I mean, I've thrown hands with people, but that's not. I'm not about that life.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to go at it with a UFC fighter, even if it's somebody that I outweigh by 80 pounds.
Yeah.
I look at that guy and I know he's one of the best fighters in the world, and he would probably double leg me and put me out.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, just to add on to that, I kind of just think it's just about, you know, the whole size thing. You know, usually whenever you see two people fighting, if they don't know anything about their background or anything, they're usually probably going to pick the guy that's bigger to end up winning the fight, just thinking that they're tougher. And I think part of that is just they wanted to see the biggest and the baddest guys get it on. So that's just part of the reason. I still think it's crazy because, you know, either way, the guy has talent. If you want to see a good fight, definitely watch this guy get in the ring because he's just talented. He can knock you out, take you down, do whatever. Guys just can do anything in the ring. But yeah, I just think it's just like people like see big guys just get it on in the ring. So it's much crazier than this.
Yeah, and
to be fair, we're going to get into him later, but you know, a guy like Mayweather though, this guy can sell fights, even though he's not the biggest, baddest guy around. So,
well, I think that's a little different just because I mean, boxing's just in a bad way right now.
True.
I mean, if you go back 15, 20 years, I mean, if there was a dominant heavyweight, they were selling. I mean, going back, I mean, pretty much that ended with Lennox Lewis, I would say. But I mean, yeah, you had Tyson. Even when he was on his downside, he would still outdraw any fighter that was ranked higher pound for pound. But it's just once the heavyweight division in boxing just got so diluted with a lack of talent, people had to start looking down to welterweight and lower than that. So you had your Roy Joneses, you had your Zab Judas, you had your Floyds come along where it's just that's where the talent was. So that's what you had to watch. But I mean, you can pull Floyd's name out that he can sell a fight. But I mean, how many more besides him can actually draw a lot of money? I mean, people are excited now for Canelo versus Golovkin, but really, how much were they making on their own fighting whoever?
Yeah, sure.
But to add to that as well, do you think Mayweather's, you know, his words, his arrogance is part of the reason he sold fights too? Like, Demetrius Johnson isn't exactly Floyd Mayweather when it comes to, you know, getting out in front of the media.
Yeah,
for sure.
And not many people are. So do you think a lot of it is a lot of people are buying these Mayweather fights? I mean, yeah, you're buying the product, but to hopefully watch him lose, get his face pounded in.
Exactly. Yeah, Floyd figured out how.
Yeah,
Floyd figured out how to play the game. When he first started, he wasn't this guy. He was humble. He said the right things in interviews, but he probably saw in order for me to start making money, like I'm talented, but in order for me to start making a lot of money and getting this pay-per-view money, I have to create a persona, and that came money. Money came out of that. Money Mayweather was born out of I need to draw more. And he started using that, doing ridiculous stuff. Whenever he fights a Mexican, going back to his dad's days, wearing the sombrero and poncho, coming to the ring just to make people hate him.
Yeah.
And it worked. He straight used WWE tactics. The baby faces don't really draw. The heels do, because you can get that heat. If you can get people wanting to throw stuff at you and they come to hope and see you lose, you're still making as much money as that person that might be a hero to people.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but like I said, we're about to get back to Mayweather in a minute. But like any other thoughts on this whole Mighty Mouse Dillashaw fight?
I mean, it's a possibility. I'm not saying this one is impossible to happen. But like we said,
are you feeling that? How are you feeling towards it? Do you think just like are you 50-50 on it? Do you think it's more likely that it will happen or will not happen?
I'm more so 70-30 that it doesn't happen.
Oh, okay. What about you, Ty? I know you was texting me this morning talking about this fight.
Yeah.
How do you think it's more likely to happen or will not happen?
I'd say as of now it's pretty split. I would say it's 50-50 right now, only because it's planned for August, so we're looking at what is that? 5 months away.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot can happen in that amount of time. I mean, I hope it goes through. I think it'd be a good fight. I think people would want to watch it. I think it'd be good. I know I'd be right in line for that one.
Yeah, it's definitely one I will definitely be somewhere to see it if it happens. It's just I'm not totally sure. Just because, I mean, I'm not sure if the UFC is willing to renegotiate DJ's contract to make sure he is paid to where he's going to be happy about this.
Yeah, just me personally, I would say 60-40, 60 it will not happen. So I just think just with Dana White's ego, I don't think he will be willing to cough up that cash just yet for that paper.
Well, then I guess just real fast, what do you think it would take for it to not happen? I mean, like, I know you guys are saying, Dana White, but would something better have to come along for it to not happen, or would it just be contract negotiations?
Yeah, it's that. You hit it right there. It's the contracts. I don't think there's a better fight for the two right now. If Garbrandt's hurt, I don't think there's another name between the two of them for those two divisions, for those two fighters that could draw. I mean, the only thing that could come close for Dillashaw would be him getting a rematch against Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's about the only thing that I think would be a reasonable substitute for Dillashaw.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree, Todd. Just the whole contract negotiations. That's what I believe.
I understand the big thing with the UFC is money talks. You're not. It's not team sports.
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially in this day and age where they can't use their sponsorships to the level that they used to be 4 or 5 years ago, and that none of them like that Reebok deal. There's only a couple people really eating off of that, and
I remember you guys talking about that.
Horrible deal, man. But all right, guys. Up next, we're about to just get into my man John Jones versus Cormier. Just looking at the trash talk these guys were having at that press conference, man, I was just cracking up. But it's set. These guys are supposed to fight at 214. But the question is, should this be the actual main event for 214? Just looking at John Jones' history, how do you guys feel about it?
I mean, in a perfect world, no, it probably shouldn't be. Well, in the perfect world, if you could actually set a card up where you have something where it's a decent follow if something does happen with this, but realistically, it has to be. This is going to be the fight that people buy this card for.
Yeah.
I don't think there's another fight you can say is going to come close to equaling this if you put it on the same card. So I mean, you don't have a choice. This is the main event for whatever card it goes on, basically. Outside of maybe getting Stipe versus Kane, that's I don't know what else you could throw on a card opposite those two where you could reasonably argue that's the main event.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to. You just hope you have a decent co-main where if it goes off the rails and Jones does something stupid, you have another decent fight at least.
Yeah, could you guys imagine Cormier if this one doesn't go through again? Like he was devastated last time, and you saw it.
Yeah.
Like that was some pretty shocking footage that they got of him when Dana White broke it.
Yeah.
But I'm with Darnell. I think just for the draw, you have to put it as the main event. That's going to be what everybody's going to talk about anyway, no matter who fights. So, I'm all for it being the main event, but, Starnell said in the perfect world, Jones has basically screwed himself over one too many times and probably shouldn't be the main event in his first fight back until he proves he can actually fight, get to a fight without failing a drug test.
Yeah. Yeah, man, Johnny, he's my guy, but, I agree with you guys. Just with his history and whatnot, you have to look at it and say, man, can I really rely on this guy to, pass a test or just not get in trouble, so we can actually have this fight happening. But just looking at these two, you have John Jones and Daniel Cormier, like who, you brought it up, Darnell, like what other fight would you put ahead of this? Like these are just two giants just clashing at each other. So, just with the trash talk and the skills, everything that these guys bring to the table, it's absolutely hard to pick a fight that would actually, that you could say that would be better than that fight. So I definitely agree, man. It would be tough in a perfect world, yes, but it would definitely be tough to just schedule a fight that you can actually say deserves to be the main event ahead of that fight. So, but hey, if they can get Stipe and Kane up in there real quick, I would definitely not mind that, man. That would be a hell of a fight. So, but all right, guys. Anything else for UFC?
Yeah, I guess just real fast, doing some research there on 214. Looks like my boy the Korean Zombie is going to be fighting.
Oh yeah, man! I remember you telling me.
Yeah, dude. Remember he was one of the first fights I watched this year.
Yeah, man.
And I remember telling you this dude might get knocked around. He was in the army over in Korea and came over here first fight, had like an abbreviated camp and knocked the dude out after getting pushed around for a round and a half.
Yeah,
I'll be excited to see what he brings.
I remember
that'll
text,
be fun.
dude.
That'll be fun.
He was telling me, he was like, this dude's named the Korean Zombie? What type of nickname is that?
I gotta watch this.
He ate them punches, man, and went in there and knocked dude out, so.
Yeah, so
hence why they call him a zombie.
Yeah.
He keeps coming.
Yeah, so I will be watching 214.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Now, let's just get back to Mayweather real quick. Are you guys still uncertain about this Mayweather-McGregor fight? There was just news coming out that McGregor, he actually done everything on his side for the contract and everything. So it's basically just in Mayweather's hands. Are you guys buying that news? You think they're just still hyping it up, or how do you guys feel?
I am not buying into this until you show me a picture of the contract.
You have to be right there in the room with them meeting down, signing it.
all but that. Yeah.
I almost feel like I need to see them both actually standing in the ring. Yeah. I understand the contract can get signed, but until they actually get in a ring together, it'll almost be hard to believe that it's actually happening.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Just with these two, just them saying that it's in Mayweather's hands now and whatnot. I still would just like to see a little bit more, man. But I was just talking. I was looking at another interview that Dana was having. He was just talking about, if this fight was to go down, this could be McGregor's last time you see him fight, which would be reasonable just with the pay that he was going to. I think they were saying he could make about $80 million off that fight, but Dana, he would get a nice chunk of that 80. So just with the whole money thing, if they could get everything scheduled out where Dana gets a lot of that cash, definitely. But I still think we got a while to go for this fight to happen. Just think they're just finding ways to continue to hype up a pretty awful fight. So.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Anything else to add? Whether any combat sport, whether boxing or whatever.
No, I think we hit it pretty good for the next few fights until they come around again.
Yep. We got next week. We'll be talking about it, man. Talking about my man Aldo getting ready. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But all right, about to go to NFL next. First we're about to talk about is Colin Kaepernick. There has been news coming out that he's going to be trying out for the Seahawks. Are you guys still pretty surprised that this guy hasn't been signed yet?
Yeah, I'm surprised. For one, I mean, we've seen less talented quarterbacks get signed already. For me personally, I'm past the protest thing. Like, I understand that will follow him for a while, but I'm past it. We need to see him as a football player now. If you're not seeing him as a football player, that's a personal issue. I mean, we've seen Mike Glennon signed to a pretty good deal in Chicago. Gabbert just signed somewhere, Arizona, I believe. We're seeing these quarterbacks that are less talented, really have a way lower ceiling than Colin Kaepernick, go to teams, and he's still sitting there waiting for someone really to even give him a look. He's just starting to get looks from teams at this point, but in terms of him working out for Seattle, I actually think it's a decent workout for him. He'd fit fairly well in that offense. He's very similar to Russell Wilson. Now, I'm not calling him Russell Wilson, but very similar style. Doesn't kill it with the long ball, can use his feet very effectively, tends to make the right decision. Medium range passes are, the bread and butter. So, I would actually like to see him land that job as the backup. I think it'd be a solid backup spot for him. But yeah, I'm pretty surprised he's not signed at this point.
Yeah, I'm surprised as well, especially after it's come out that he wasn't like demanding a starting job on a team, especially if he's willing to talk to a team like Seattle that has an unquestioned number one quarterback, and then like Tyus went with some of the other quarterbacks that have been signed to starting jobs or backup jobs. I mean, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick that just got a job.
Him too.
He's an interception machine versus Cap, who has one of the lower interception rates over the last few seasons of any quarterback. It just shows more and more that it's not football. It's not football why he's not on a roster. But I agree with Ty as well. I do think this is one of the better fits for football reasons and non-football reasons. The Seahawks, they have an interesting crew of characters there where everybody's pretty free to speak their mind. Pete Carroll, their coach, kind of is open to that. He likes his players to be free, express themselves. You got Richard Sherman there. You got one of the Bennett brothers that are all, open and honest, and they wear their beliefs on their sleeve too. So it's kind of a good landing spot for him where Cap wouldn't be the focus of everything with his personal beliefs. So I do think that's a good spot. And then on the football side, I do think he's a good fit to step in there and help out if something were to happen with Russell Wilson where he had to miss some games. I think he's a serviceable fit with a similar skill set that would be able to plug right in.
Now, this is just a tryout, but do you guys actually think he will land there in Seattle?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, apparently his only competition is RG3. I think at this point in time, Cap is probably a better look there. He's more durable, being that he's a bigger, stronger QB, and I think he protects the ball a little better. So I don't see where else they would go, especially with last year's backup, Trevin Boykin, having some legal issues. So I think it's more likely than not that's where he goes, unless somebody sneaks in with an offer where he actually has a chance at starting.
All right. It's fair to say. All right, now we're about to get into home, talk about the Detroit Lions. There was news from Calvin Johnson coming out this week, comments he made about the Lions where He just said that he felt as if he wasn't treated right by the Lions on his way out. I believe he had to give back $200,000 to $300,000 from his contract in order to leave the Lions. So, but what did you guys think when you first heard that?
I thought it was BS. I mean, this dude took so many bullets for you guys in games, putting himself on the line to try to pick balls from any angle. I mean, outside of this year, I've not been shy about my thoughts on Stafford as far as I thought he relied too much on Calvin, and Calvin saved him on a lot of bad throws where he was just kind of seeing the area where Calvin was and throwing it because he has a catch radius of a garage. So most likely he was going to come down with it. But from a lot of that extending to make those plays to help that team, he took a lot of hits, a lot of safeties got the tee off on him because of that, and linebackers across the middle. So, due to how much he had to take, I think they should have let him keep his $200,000 to $300,000. Because I mean, what's that getting the Lions? And an extra third string is terrible anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Moore's got plenty of money anyway, man. So
yeah, I think kind of one of the misconceptions floating around this story is that like Calvin Johnson, really mad with the Lions and he's starting to break ties with them. He went to the Raiders OTAs the other day. Yeah. And a lot of people are starting to think, is this Calvin Johnson starting to, pull apart from the Lions? Like, I don't think that's happening. Just kind of based on the quote, he said, it's all good. I'm not tripping. I don't feel any kind of way. Just, hey, that's what they did. It is what it is. I mean, I think he understands the business aspect of it. That's why they reached a settlement. It was $320,000. So, I mean, I think he understands where the team's coming from. It just wasn't the way he wanted it to happen. And I think that there's a very fine line between, I think, the narrative that's kind of following the story and what actually went down. So, I think it's just kind of fair to clear the air on that. So, I think he has a right to be upset though. Like Darnell said, he gave his whole career to a team that took him nowhere. one playoff appearance, I think.
Yeah.
Like, he is going to be one of the, and the word I'm looking for, I don't even think I can come up with, because it's not that he was a disappointment. It's not that he underachieved, but he's going to be probably one of the best players to never have team success. I mean, I guess that's the best way to put it. One playoff appearance in that guy's career, the guy set records.
Yeah.
Put him on any other team, you're talking Super Bowl. Which is very unfortunate for Calvin Johnson. And I think, as a Lions fan and anybody who has watched the Lions play, so, I think all of us will agree, we all kind of wish better for him, during his career. Like, yeah, that's great. We drafted him. We get him through his rookie contract. We re-sign him. We have Stafford. We're thinking, all right, things are heading in the right direction. We start winning, but then we don't get over the hump of, first round playoffs. They kind of get stuck there. And, we all wanted better for Calvin Johnson because we saw how great he was, but everybody else may not have because they didn't get to watch him week in and week out. So, he sacrificed for that team. He gave a lot and, $320,000. Granted, with all the money he made in the league, he's not going to necessarily miss $320,000. But then again, neither would the Lions. And I almost think the Lions needed to kind of be the bigger man here to say, you know what, have a good retirement.
Yeah, that's totally pretty much. I echo that. It's I mean, for both sides, I mean, it's basically like a $100 bill to Calvin, and it's basically like $1 to the Lions.
Yeah.
But it's just the principle of it. You got this guy that was a good soldier. He never, he may have internally been just pissed that he was playing for a team that could only peak at a first round exit. But he never said a bad word about him. He was always the epitome of class, and you know, anybody with eyes knew that this guy was at worst the number 2 receiver in the league for his whole career. Any given season, I think overall during his time period, I don't think there's anybody you could say was clearly better than him. So, I mean, it's just like you said. I mean, it seems a little petty that you had to fight with him over $300,000 when that's not an amount of money it wasn't the difference between a Super Bowl and a wild card spot for the Lions. They weren't getting any further than they were already.
Yeah. All right, now Tyler, you brought it up. He did go to the Raiders OTAs. Do you think this could be a sign of him itching to want to get back on the field, possibly next year, maybe this year? Or what? Do you just think he's just doing it, or how do you guys feel?
Yeah, you know, all these guys are fans of the game, and they all recognize who, you know, the good players are, who the great players are, and, you know, all these guys are friends, and, you know, he's probably just going to hang out. I mean, people in, you know, front offices move different teams all the time, and, you know, you go visit somebody. I mean, yeah, it was a little weird watching him, you know, wear a white Raider shirt, but, you know, but it's kind of like the dude's retired. I don't think he's coming back because of the way he talked about, you know, the whole CTE issue. He had that big piece, I think it was on E60, if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah, just the way, you know, I heard him talk about the CTE situation, his career, I think he sees the legitimate danger in it, and, you know, how, you know, players would, you know, get those painkillers, and how they'd abuse them, how he abused them for a while. You know, I actually think, you know, he's done. He can wake up in the morning and not feel like he has to take 50 different pills just to make it through the day. And I think he's satisfied with where he's at, the career he had. I think he'll always love the Lions organization, the Fords, you know, the coaches he had. So I think he is comfortable with where he's at right now.
Yeah, I don't read too much into him showing up at the Raiders OTA. Calvin, I mean, outside of even being as great as a receiver as he was, he's one of the smarter guys in the NFL. I think he's always had his exit strategy planned out, and like Tyler's mentioned, I think a lot of those aches and pains and injuries that were building up, it just wasn't worth it for him anymore. And even the thought of him going to a team like the Raiders that, you know, are on the upper slope, I just don't think that's enough for him. He's made his money, and, you know, his production was starting to go down, and he was starting to be hurt more often. I don't think he wants that for himself. I think he was just there, you know, to take in the OTA and give some of his knowledge to a younger player. There was an article on ESPN today just of him talking with the receivers there, him and Amari Cooper going over routes and stuff like that. I think that's all that was, just, you know, him giving some knowledge to the new breed of receiver, somebody that maybe he sees something in.
All right. Now we're about to get into the Detroit Lions schedule Just what do you guys think of their schedule, and what are your predictions for them? How many games do you think they'll win?
Yeah, the one thing that I like about the NFL is the teams you play the following year are solely determined on how you finished the year before. I really like that. I think it, brings the best competition possible. You get a lot of the division winners playing each other. You get a lot of top tier teams constantly week in, week out facing off with each other. So the Lions finishing second place in the NFC North last year, that means they get a pretty tough schedule coming forward because, you look at, they have to play the NFC South next year. So that means they have to see Atlanta, they have to see New Orleans, they have to see Carolina, three, very solid football squads. Now Carolina coming off a pretty rough year, but, still a team you have to worry about. They're not the Cleveland Browns, which we get to see this year from the, AFC North. So, tough schedule. They play some of the second place teams out there. But overall, I like the mix of their schedule. I believe that the first and second half, just a quick run through. They play home to Arizona, at New York Giants, home to the Falcons, at the Vikings, home against the Carolina Panthers, at New Orleans, home to Pittsburgh, at Green Bay, home to Cleveland, at the Bears, home to the Vikings, then they're at the Ravens and at the Bucks, then they're home against the Bears and at the Bengals, and then home against the Packers. So, yeah, so just a couple highlighted games that I have for the Lions this year. Not necessarily some make or break games, but I think some games that'll kind of show what this team really is. I'm going to start week 1 and talk about their match with the Cardinals. I think that'll be a really good week 1 test. And, the Cardinals will have, David Johnson back. So I think this will be a really good opening week for that Lions defense to kind of maybe set a good tone early. Hopefully pull out a win week 1, get the team on a strong foot to start. But then they go to the Meadowlands and play the Giants in Monday Night Football. I think that'll be a great follow-up game, win or lose to that game with the Cardinals. Once again, just see what the team's made of. Giants made a good run last year, so I think that'll be a fun one. And then week 3, they'll have the Falcons. So, very, very tough stretch to start for the Lions. I think that'll be a great test early. Last year, their schedule was real tough late. I think the first half of their schedule is way tougher than the second half. So, I think if the Lions, through the first 6 weeks could even be 3-3, I think they'd be in it, setting themselves up very nice, to finish out the season. They'll go see the Steelers. I think that'll be a very tough game. I won't expect them to win that, but I think that game will be, asking a lot of the Lions, but, good team to play mid-season, kind of keep everything in check. If they were to get on a small win streak, that'd be a good reality check for them, play against a good playoff team there in the AFC Championship last year. I think it'll be interesting to see how, the Lions handle the Browns. Not saying I expect this to be a great game, but I just want to see if the Lions can control a football game. They did not do that much last year. I think that'll be a good opportunity for them to just control a game beginning to end. And, just get a pretty good, easy win under their belt. Trey, sorry, but I haven't beaten the Ravens this year.
All right.
They'll be in Baltimore.
That was marked for me, man. 12-3.
Yep, they'll be in Baltimore. I think, once again, kind of like the Steelers, that's just going to be another good reality check game for them. Baltimore hits hard. They play tough. Solid defense. Can beat you with the long ball. So I think that'll be a good game for the secondary of the Lions. Good test for them. And then always ending the year with the Packers. It's always a pretty good game. It's been fun when the division comes down to it. Very nervous, but, I'm hoping that the Lions can do a little better at home against the Packers this year. But in terms of overall record, I have them at best 10-6. Realistically, I have them at that 9-7, 8-8 mark, and I think at worst they could go 6-10 this year. So, if I had to kind of put my money down on something, I'd have them at 9-7, very borderline for the playoffs. I think they need at least 10 if they want to get there. But, like I said, finishing second in the NFC North last year, that gave them a pretty tough draw. They, get to play those second place teams and, then they have to play the NFC South. So that just is a tough draw. It's how the schedule goes. And, I think the Lions will get to see some pretty good competition this year.
Now, just for you, because you already said it, Todd, but just looking at the schedule, do you have any faith that they can win a division?
Once again, I think it'll determine how they start the season. I mean, when you open the season with, Arizona, New York Giants, Atlanta Falcons, Minnesota Vikings, Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, you could very easily lose every single one of those games.
Yeah.
Like I said, if they can just start the season off, 3-3, 4-3, I really think they could set themselves up for a nice cushion. The Packers will be playing all those first place teams. So it's not like they're going to have a cakewalk schedule. They're the team that had to basically win their last 7 games of the season last year to win the division. So I don't think it's out of the question for the Lions, but they'll definitely have their work cut out for them.
Yeah. All right, Nizo, how you feeling?
I look at the schedule and I'm like, ooh, as far as the Lions go.
Scary. It's a scary schedule.
Yeah. Because, I mean, they won the games that were in front of them last year, but I feel like they never really showed that they could put teams away. They had to have a lot of comeback victories and a lot of late game theatrics, and then late in the season where they played those top tier teams, they hung for a couple quarters, maybe 2/3 of the game, and then they got beat up. So, I mean, and I'm not sure how much they improved from last year. I mean, they had a decent draft, but I'm not sure how quickly they will make an impact. So, I mean, I look at the schedule and it just reads 8-8 to me. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like they're going to be that middling team. They'll probably finish second in the division just because I'm not sure about Minnesota, and Chicago's going to be terrible. So, but yeah, I mean, especially like the starting schedule, I think they have a shot at beating Arizona, but the Giants and the Falcons, I think, feast on them, and I think they'll beat Minnesota. Carolina's going to be a tough one for them, and then can they handle just a high-powered offense just because their defense has not been great? And then, they second half of the season is a little better, but still not much. So, I mean, you still have Pittsburgh in week 8. That's going to be a battle. They play Green Bay twice, between weeks 9 and 17. They have Cleveland and Chicago and Minnesota in there, where those are teams I feel like they can beat. Baltimore is going to be a tough game, and so will Tampa. And Cincy, I feel like that's like a coin flip because I feel like they're kind of similar type teams with their talent levels. So this is a rough looking schedule. I think they can go 8-8. I don't feel like the Lions are a bad team or anything like that, but they read 8-8 to me and are probably on the outside looking into a wild card spot.
Yeah, kind of going off what you were saying, talking about facing a high-powered offense. They face a few high-powered offenses this year, which is why I'm so nervous. And like I said, they could either go, somehow go 10-6, or they could go 6-10. When you're looking at Atlanta, New Orleans, Green Bay twice, Steelers, some weeks the Bucks, just this is not a friendly schedule at all. And it's not like it's their fault. It's just the way the NFL does the scheduling. It's not a randomized schedule. It's very planned out. I actually really like the way they do the scheduling. I think it calls for the best games every year. This way you could possibly get, Green Bay versus New England, and everybody will watch that. You could get Seattle versus New England, and everyone will watch that because those are first place teams. But just top to bottom, the schedule just doesn't scream cakewalk. I expect the Lions to win some of the games in very ugly fashion. Yeah. I don't expect a lot of, 10-point victories here. I expect some Matt Prater field goals. I'll expect some Matthew Stafford touchdown with 8 seconds left. One, because that's just how the Lions operate, and it's how I kind of feel they always will. But just having to play some of those second place teams, playing the AFC North, those are just things that scream difficult, challenge, tough football. And, this will be a very telling year for the Lions. And I'm not saying, who needs to stay, who needs to go, but I think this will toughen a lot of players up, for the following year. Now, I'm not saying I want this to happen, but say the Lions go 6-10 this year. Say they finish third. That could set up very well for them the following year. Some of these rookies they drafted who seem to be quite promising can get a year under their belt, play some really good competition, and then the following year grab an easier schedule. I mean, it's just the way it falls, but I mean, it could end up being a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Do you have anything else to add for the Lions or the NFL?
No.
I really hope they can win at least 8. At least 8.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm nervous about the schedule, so they got a tough one.
Yeah. I think I heard somewhere they have like the 4th hardest schedule.
Oh, yeah.
I think. I would need to double check that. I don't have that in front of me, but
I could agree. I mean, a lot of losable games on here. There's only a few where I'm like 100% confident that they win.
Is one of those the Browns?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure that
Browns and both Bears games. I'm pretty safe on those.
All right, guys. Now I'm about to turn it to the NBA. First thing I'm about to talk about is the Celtics and the Cavs. Just how do you guys feel about this matchup?
I mean, it should be over, but LeBron decided to play terrible one game, so we got a 5-game series instead of a sweep. But I mean, it is what it is. After the Celtics and Wizards, it was a decent series there, but the better matchup for Cleveland, as I think we all mainly agreed on, was probably Washington.
Yeah.
But Boston got that series. They came in, got mollywopped that first game, and then IT got hurt, and the Celtics stepped up and played their one game, and luckily enough, it was the one game where LeBron James couldn't get to 15 points, and we are where we are.
Well, let me ask you. Well, go ahead. Add what you got to say, Ty.
Yeah, I was going to say. I think the one word that would describe this series is what? Like with a question mark after it. Like, first of all, Isaiah Thomas goes out and you think, oh, all right, another starter down. This will be over. And then LeBron plays bad. The rest of the Celtics look really good. And then in the most recent game, Kyrie goes off, which we haven't seen much of that in the playoffs yet. And some of the Celtics players look kind of bad again, yet they hang around. it's just kind of an odd series to watch. Like, I think at one point I was texting you guys saying the game has no flow. I can't remember which game it was. It was not the 50 whatever point blowout, because Cleveland had all to flow that game. But it's just that the Celtics seem like they process the ball better on offense without Isaiah Thomas on the floor, but sometimes they just struggle to put it in the hoop. They get better looks without Isaiah Thomas on the floor. They have better ball movement without Isaiah Thomas on the floor. They just struggle to score. They don't have that just stone cold score that they have in Isaiah Thomas. So, I mean, it makes sense why they can't seem to get the ball in the hoop, but it also is like, these are NBA guys who should be making open 20-footers.
Yeah, I mean, the last game was just weird. LeBron getting a bunch of fouls early. Yeah. And then, but the second half, the Cavaliers shoot 70-some% from the floor. I mean, you can't write a game like that, like a story. But yeah, I mean, it's just, the series has just been odd overall. Like I said, you had the massive blowouts, to start the series out. One team's best player goes down, and all of a sudden, ball movement picks up. I expected the Celtics to be better on defense, in game 3, but I mean, I wasn't expecting the scoring to pick up like that. And then, of course, you got the big shot at the end, just before the buzzer to win it for Boston. And then you have the ridiculous game that was game 4. It's been a weird series. It's not been an exciting series at all. It's just kind of one of those where, let's get this weird ass series out of here so we can get to the main event that everybody's looking for.
Yeah, just real quick before you ask your question, Trey, I think Colin Cowherd says it best. A 5-game series is just a sweep with an extra road trip. It's still embarrassing. It still shows you didn't deserve to be a part of it. But you have to take that extra road trip. And it sucks for everybody. And I think that's what we're going to end up with here.
Yeah. You watch Colin.
The gentleman's sweep.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I watch Colin Cowherd every day at noon.
Yeah.
Sometimes, although lately he just defends LeBron, talks about how he compares to MJ. Like, that's all he's been talking about lately. So I'm like, yeah, forget it.
Well, he likes to be the contrarian on some things.
Yeah, he does.
It helps his ratings.
Yeah, don't blame him for that. But
I did. Just real quick. I did enjoy my man LeVar Ball on there, man.
Oh God! You enjoyed that? That was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever watched.
Okay, Darnell, just do this for me real fast. Have you ever? Okay, think back in your life of some stuff Trayan has told you over the years. Have you ever just shook your head, kind of blown Trey off? And, okay,
I do that once a week.
Is Trayan a little LeVar Ball? He's got a little LeVar in him.
I mean, saying ridiculous things and
believing it.
Yeah.
Trayan's got it. We should start calling him Latrayan.
Latrayan.
Latre. Yeah, Latre.
You guys are crazy, man.
Just saying.
Yeah, man.
Where the $500 sneaks at?
For $4.95. Yeah. You're right.
But yeah, man, what I was about to ask you guys, just looking at the Cavs, they did end up losing game 3. They looked horrible there. And at the beginning, the first half of game 4, they were playing bad too. LeBron having the 4 fouls. Just looking at this team, are you guys a little bit nervous for them that they might be starting to show a little bit of their old inconsistent ways?
I mean, nothing about the Eastern Conference side has made me fear that Golden State isn't winning the title. I'll just put that out there.
All right, so you're saying it right now, man. Golden State got it locked.
I believe so. Yes.
All right. Okay.
I'll even second that.
I mean,
I know, Trey, you're going to pick Cleveland this year, but
we'll see.
I just don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, Cleveland's done what for the most part, they've done what they're supposed to do. They fell apart in Game 3. Still only lost off of a shooter's bounce.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. I mean, it was tied. They were going into overtime, but Avery Bradley hit a big shot. Kudos to him. It was a big shot. But, I mean, just, I don't know what it is. 2 seasons in a row, basically, but, I said it in the last show. Cleveland kind of avoided every tougher matchup for themselves.
Yeah.
Coming through this. Like, it was pretty much a godsend for them getting the 2 seed because they never had to play a team that would have been a better matchup. They avoided the Bucks, which would have probably given them some fits because they're a strong defensive team and they're tall at most positions. And they avoided the Wizards, who possibly could have canceled out their 2 and 3 best players. Not LeBron, of course. Nobody really cancels him out, but you would have had an equivalent of Kyrie and John Wall, and the Wizards are a reasonable defensive team, which would have given Kevin Love some problems. Mm-hmm. But they things fell into the right way for them. They got Toronto, which just couldn't figure out Cleveland, and they got Boston, which we saw they're not a good matchup at all for the Cavaliers. And this series now has the national media wondering if Boston needs to trade Isaiah Thomas. So I mean that shows basically how bad of a matchup that this was coming out. So looking at it that way, I'm not really impressed by the Cavaliers' playoff run. LeBron has been ridiculously good. I will not take that away from him, but just overall, I'm not like, ooh, you gotta watch out for them Cavs.
Yeah, when you do what you're supposed to do, you don't really get all the, love, I guess is the word I'm looking for there. You don't get the love when you do what you're supposed to do. It's just, LeBron's sweeping the Eastern Conference. Well, they're terrible. He's supposed to do that. Now, to be fair, it's not like Golden State has exactly had a big roadblock in their way either. I mean, we got the matchup with the Spurs that we wanted, but then Kawhi goes down and it just kind of blows up in everyone's face. And it's like, well, so much for that. I tried to send you guys a picture the other day and it didn't go through, and I just didn't try to resend it, but it was, said, LeBron goes, beats the Eastern Conference by an average of 20 points. Oh, the East sucks. Steph Curry beats the Western Conference by an average of 20 points. Oh, Steph Curry's the next best thing, and in reality, it seems like that's the narrative between the East and the West Conference, that the Western Conference is all these, stud teams, but I mean, let's face it, Golden State goes 12-0, marches their way to the finals. I think we expected, 2 sweeps out of them. Maybe not the one against the Spurs, but we also didn't anticipate Kawhi Leonard going down. So, in my opinion, it's 2 teams that did not necessarily have a roadblock in front of them. Kind of just show up and you're gonna win. I mean, granted, the loss for the Cavaliers, everything fell into place for Boston that night. LeBron wasn't having it. Marcus Smart hit 7 threes. When has he ever hit 7 threes? I can tell you he didn't do it at all this season because he was on my fantasy basketball team. So it's just, the idea that LeBron's just done what he's supposed to do. You can't blame him for it. Golden State's done what they're supposed to do. You can't blame them for it either. To me, I think it's just the idea that for one game, everything fell into place for Boston. And I don't know that Cleveland's falling into old ways or anything like that. I mean, the other night, Kyrie scores over 40, LeBron scores over 30. I mean, what more do we want from these guys? I mean, LeBron has, 4 fouls in the first half. I think he had 11 points in the first half, and he scores over 25 in the second half. Or I don't think he scored 25 in the second half, but he ended up with over 30, and it's just kind of like, what do we want? 100 points out of LeBron? So we can just continue to add to this, greatest of all time discussion. But at the end of the day, like I said, they're just doing what they're supposed to do. They faltered for one game. I don't think we can write them off because of one game. But I think I'm right in line with Darnell, thinking that Golden State has the advantage over the two right now. Right. I think they're playing better basketball overall.
Yeah, and I'm more along those sides. I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that Golden State has just waxed such superiors. Their side has been so much tougher. But I mean, because they got the Spurs minus Kawhi and Tony Parker. I know Parker's on his downside as well, but they still beat them. I think the Spurs without those two players probably still beat Boston in the 7-game series.
Yeah.
And I think the Blazers probably beat just about everybody else in the East outside of maybe Boston and Washington and Cleveland in a series. So, I mean, I guess just the West, I think, has a better conference. Just, getting around that. But I just feel like overall they're a better put together team. They're more efficient. They play better defense. Yeah. So I think they're a better team than the Cavs.
But I think we agree it won't be a sweep.
No. Yeah. I'm thinking Golden State in 6.
We'll talk about that later, all right? Dang, goodness. Just enjoy the moment, guys. Getting ahead of
what moment? These playoffs are terrible.
Yeah, I was going to say. The moment of the worst playoffs possibly ever.
Oh, man.
Hey, as Kevin Durant said, if you don't like it, don't watch it.
Yeah. And I didn't.
Yeah, I think I switched it to hockey. I watched the opening tip and I said, all right, this sucks. And went to the hockey game.
There's been a lot of games I've turned off early or just flat out didn't watch.
Yeah.
IT went down. I turned it on when I saw it was close in game 3. But, I mean, the first game of the series, I turned it on in the third quarter. I turned it off in the third quarter. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Just not dealing with this.
All right, guys. Now, you just get to Golden State. They are repping the Western Conference for the finals. Just how do you think this team compares to the team they had last year?
They're better.
Think so?
Yeah. You don't add Durant and take a step back. I think this team's a little more driven, more focused. Who was it? Their GM or someone said they have unfinished business to take care of. And I think that's, from the front office all the way down to the last guy on the bench. I think everybody's buying into that mentality. They're going to come in. If they can sweep Cleveland, they will. They're going to give it all they have. I just think that this Golden State team just has figured it out. I think they realized, all right, we had 73 wins last year. We didn't win the championship. So first of all, one, who cares how many wins you get in a regular season? It doesn't matter. And two, a little bit of a LeBron approach and just said, hey, you know what? Let's just build ourselves for the postseason. Let's just get stocked up, rest during the regular season, just get ourselves in position for the 1 seed, and then make the finals. And I think that was their mission from day one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that was definitely put together to win a championship. They had a good regular season, and I think KD's injury is one of those crazy things where it was a good thing for a team. It showed them that they don't have to rely on him, even though he was the new plug into this engine that, you know, he came in and pretty much made himself the best player on the team. Like Curry pretty much had to adjust to him and not vice versa. But if during the couple of weeks that he was out, Steph Curry found his groove and got back into things. And since KD came back, both of them have been very consistent playing with each other. And it's crazy when you have that much firepower on a team that they still made things work. And everybody accepted their roles and did what they need to do. Like, it's crazy to say, but I feel like Draymond became a better defensive player. Mm-hmm. Clay stayed consistent. Pretty much his numbers are pretty much identical to last year. He ticked up a little bit in points, ticked down like a half of a rebound or something like that. And then, like I said, Steph had some up and down time, but he seems to be clicking now. Field goal percentage is back up. So, I mean, it's just, this team they're a giant, and I don't know if there's a David to take out this Goliath.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, in terms of that KD injury, because I think that that's very crucial to talk about. Look at how many people have gotten hurt this postseason. That injury came at the right time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that something crazy won't happen moving forward, and someone could get hurt game one of the NBA Finals. You know, it happened to Kyrie Irving a couple of years ago. But that injury happened at the right time. You know, if it happens any later, it could have bled over into the playoffs. If it happened any sooner, who knows what could have happened. So that injury just seemed to kind of happen in perfect timing. It was kind of the perfect storm for them.
All right, guys. Now, do you have anything else to add?
No.
All right, as always, appreciate you guys for checking us out. You can find this podcast on websites such as YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Just hit us up in the search engine. Also, check us out on Twitter at BKM_cast. But as always, guys, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Peace out.